Hello dear friends, this is Bob Hatton. This is The Encourager. So good to see you today. I wish you God's blessing. I hope you have a very good day. And yesterday we talked about some things in the Bible. I talked about the first 17 books that we had a look at, and we looked at shortly at the 5 books of wisdom, and then I just mentioned the 17 prophetic books that are in the Bible. Now I did say that we've almost come to the end of the story. We've almost come to the end of this story that started in the Garden of Eden with creation, and we've seen now that Jerusalem has been destroyed, the temple has been destroyed, and the people of God have been taken away into exile. Well, we're not exactly on the end. There are some more stories in there, and one of the stories is about a man called Daniel, and Daniel was one of the prisoners who was taken into exile. He was a young man at that time. He was probably just a teenager, about 15 years old, and he was taken away to Babylon into captivity. Now, when the people got there in Babylon, I mean, they were always trying to put God in a box. I don't know if you can remember, but when I was probably a teenager, there was lots of people who were a little bit older than me, and they were always trying to break records. And that's about the time when the Guinness Book of Records was started. They were trying to fit as many people as they could into a telephone box or into a car or something, and trying to break a record. And I remember that once we had a youth meeting, a special youth meeting, where quite a lot of young people came together, and some of the young people, they brought a car into our church and put it in the back, and then they had a competition to see which youth group could get how many people they could get in the car. It was a small car. They only had 4 seats in there, but they were getting people at 15 or maybe 18 people in there. I've forgotten which group won, but it was a lot of fun. But you know, that's what the Jewish people did with God. They tried to press him into a small space, and they said, God is there to bless us because we are the chosen people. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how we live. It doesn't matter that we look after other gods and that we're disobedient to this God. He's there to bless us. And in fact, even at the end, when the Babylonians were attacking Jerusalem and the walls were falling, there are people who were saying nothing can happen to us because we have the temple. That's where God lives. That's where he dwells. That's what Solomon built. And we saw what happened when Solomon dedicated the temple and what dramatic events were there. And so they were trusting this, and they didn't think that their behavior had anything to do with the fact that God blesses them or doesn't. And in the end, the city was destroyed, the temple was destroyed, and the people were taken away into into Babylon. And when they were in exile, I guess some of the people were thinking, well, we'll soon be going back home and we can pick up where we left off. But that wasn't going to happen. Jeremiah, he told them, he said, you know, it's going to be a time. You're going to be in that land for quite a while. So you might as well start to plant trees. You might as well start to get married. Don't just plant plants and grain, but plant trees to get fruit from the trees, because you're going to be there for a while. Oh, and by the way, I want you to seek the shalom. Seek the peace of the city, seek the goodness of the city, seek the prosperity of the city, because when the city is blessed, you will also be blessed, and you're going to be there for a while. He told them to make the best of their situation. And you know, dear friends, we are experiencing things in the place where we live, that so many things are changing, so many things are changing in society. There are a lot of things that are today that are acceptable, but only just a few years ago, they would be completely unacceptable. And as far as the Christians are concerned, these are not good developments. But God has planted us here in this place, in this country, in this society for a time like this. And that's what Daniel, you know, he went there, he let them do a number of things to him. He plunged himself into the Babylonian culture. He allowed them to change his name. But then he had a red line. And when they brought on the food that for him in his in his understanding, was unclean food. He refused to eat it. And he said, I'm not going to do that. And there were some other things where he refused. He was part of the establishment, but he didn't do everything that they expected of him. But I don't have the time to go into all the details about Daniel, but he progressed. He got respect and he got responsibility. God helped him again and again. God was there, and he became a person with a lot of influence in Babylon. And even, it's a little bit of speculation, but you know the wise men that went to Jesus in Matthew chapter 2, they probably came from Babylon. And there's a little bit of speculation, but they probably belonged to a school that Daniel started at this time. And his influence, it went over hundreds of years. And he's even influencing us today. But, maybe you're feeling a little bit disquieted because of things in the place where you are living that are changing, where you're being pressed in, where you're not being able to develop as you want to. Maybe some of your freedom is being pruned away. Let's seek the prosperities, seek the blessing for the city where we're living, because when the city is blessed, we will also be blessed. And now we've got another story which is completely different than Daniel's story. Daniel was upright. God is my judge. That's what his name meant. Daniel was very upright. But then we come on to the next story, what I want to tell you today, and that's about Esther. Esther was also an exile, not living in Babylon, but living in Persia. Persia was the empire that continued after Babylon, and she was there with her uncle, who was a guardian. He would probably came from Jerusalem or from Judah, and came across her. But I have the feeling that Esther was either very, very young, or she was born in Persia. And Esther wasn't like Daniel. Esther didn't seem to have any red lines. She didn't draw any lines. She did lots of things where I don't think a Christian should do. But she also got into a prominent position. God positioned her as queen. She married the king of Persia. She married the emperor of Persia. And at a time when things were going very bad, her uncle spoke to her and says, who knows whether you haven't come to be the queen for a time like this. In other words, you're a lady with destiny. And what I want to tell you today, dear friends, God has placed us in this time, wherever you are in this world at this moment, that's the place where God has planted you. And he's planted you because you are a person of destiny. God wants to do something with your life. Don't treat that with so much insignificance. You might not have done everything right, like Esther didn't do everything right, but God was going to use her to save her people. God used Daniel to have so much influence over many people. So I just want to say, to be blessed, don't to think too little of yourself. Know that God is with you. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. God is with you, and he's prepared to use you in this situation. For a time like this, God has called you. So have a good day today. Have a good weekend. I'll see you again. You're Bob Hatton, your encourager.